in the changing, sorry, I've got to turn this around. Anyway, so I've just written down a few comments here. Character of research, the changing character of research and development and the associate process of globalization, especially in healthcare. So we are all working actually in a global industry. And as someone said in the morning session, that ultimately the genetic counselors, there will be all these admixtures. Today we have our pure groups. Let us use them to bring out some novel technologies to the market, but ultimately there will be these admixtures who will deliver the real story and treatments. And so global patterns of R&D, what are they? A better understanding of these patterns arising from impact of globalization to bring convergence of technology, a knowledge economy, and cutting-edge R&D, free patterning relationships, and at the same time, you're looking at individualistic. It's all individual-led, multi-patterning, multi-technology, all at the R&D. So one individual is pretty much controlling his or her own fate. But to deliver to him or her this new global healthcare paradigm, there is a need for multiple stakeholders in this game. And if you want to deliver individual specific precision prevention, predictive, preventive, and precision healthcare. And for this, genetic counseling advisors are absolutely essential, and they will have to handhold not only from the initial point of discovery, but even through the disease as it manifests itself in individuals. So each individual, each human being would need disease-specific counseling right from, I think, in the future, from the moment they express themselves at the RNA level. The BCGI platform and Avestagen, we have joined hands for multiple. Endogamous Parsi Zoroastrian population was conceived as such a study to bring the opportunity and benefits of novel biomarkers and drugs as precision therapies to the world. Like all new technologies of the past, biotechnology has also brought the whole world to participate in a debate that has raised all of us to a new paradigm of knowledge. Because this is ultimately a knowledge-based piece of work for everyone. And one has to rewrite the story. So the conventional hypothesis of who manufactures this, who does the R&D, who does the delivery, who does everything has to be recast, in my opinion. And it will have to be rephrased, and today when I was talking at lunchtime, I already see that happening. It's pretty much around. It is coming, as I mentioned, in different hotspots, which we have to collectively pool, disease specifically, individual specifically, and address these areas. One has to rewrite the story and to harbor new minds and embrace the outcome of 25 years of genomic R&D and offer it to the world. It's exactly, that the first human genome was sequenced in 2000. We are exactly 25 years down. We are also 25 years old as Avestagen. And but there's still a long story to go, long story to tell, and we will work with everyone to accomplish this. And it is the partnering model, specifically for an individual, specifically for a disease. And I'm very grateful to the team at BCGI, and especially Atul Nair for leading it. I tell you, just before this time, it is going to be more and more. You'll have to increase the numbers. It will happen, and subgroups will happen, subgroups. It will be a parallel opportunity to medical doctors. They will go hand in hand. If not, the genetic counselor will have to take a medical degree. Anyway, thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm enjoying myself. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for inspiring words. Now I request Dr. Annie Hassan, the President of BGCI, to deliver a welcome note.
Good afternoon. It's my privilege and pleasure to invite you all to the 9th Board of Genetic Counseling meeting. And every year when I see new students, I believe that I will make it. I'll be able to get the numbers which we desire, the numbers which the International Forum has set for populations. It's a huge task, but that is why I'm glad that today we have industry, academia, research institutes, NGOs, as well as people who are helping us make policies together. What I want to say to the youngsters is that I've never regretted being a genetic counselor. Whatever the problems, whatever the difficulties, I'm proud to have chosen what I have chosen. And the others who have been with me in this journey, the only person who was not a geneticist is Percy Italia, but I think he's been the one most wonderful to get us into a coherent group and take it as an organization. You know, passion is good, emotions are good, but you need a form. And this form in the academics was given for my first course in 2007 by Pragna Rao, because I just had the passion. I said, I want to do it. But somebody has to give it a shape. So Pragna was the one who made it into a course, helped me make it block 1, block 2, this exam, that exam, and so on. So we need all sorts. And like my grandmother used to say, that the beauty of the hand is because all the fingers are not the same size. They are different. So what I want to say today is that we have achieved one milestone, and for that I would want Megha Agarwal to come onto the dais, and that milestone is so, like Megha said in her talk, that this is just the beginning. Now is the time where we get to the next step and get genetic counselors trained and ready for the industry, ready for the clinics, ready for the community. Thank you so much.
I request Dr. Gayatri Iyer to deliver a note on the theme of the conference.
Good afternoon, one and all. It is an honor and pride to invoke the theme of 9th Annual International Conference of the Board of Genetic Counseling, India. The title of the conference, Genomic Variants in Personalized Healthcare with Genetic Counselors as Facilitators, attempts to capture the evolving role of genetic testing and counseling in contemporary healthcare. Though in recent past the word variant might have instilled fear, stigmatization, and panic, it also represents an opportunity to exercise caution, screening, surveillance, and prevention. The conference commenced this morning with 2 power-packed workshops. Workshop 1, Variant Analysis in Whole Genome Sequencing Era, saw an overwhelming participation of 60 delegates and 6 faculty members. The workshop 2, on Essentials of Genetic Counseling, had 40 participants and 10 faculty. As we witness the inaugural today with the dignitaries spearheading different domains of healthcare, we also look forward to 8 scientific sessions curated to cover the length and breadth of human health genomics. We kickstart the first session tomorrow on global variants with eminent speakers from Malaysia, United States and India to bring an international perspective to population genomics and its utility. It is followed by a dedicated session on personalized genomics addressing precision medicine in mono and polygenic diabetes, infertility management, pediatric and adult onset conditions. Next, we jump to a session that elucidates about disorders that are common in prevalence yet complex in genetics, like the diabetic neuropathy, familial hypercholesterolemia, and cardiac disorders. Speaking of common disorders, how can we miss cancer that has been at the center stage of majority of our discussions? We have experts enlightening us about germline and somatic testing and demonstrate the dynamic role of genetic counselors in practice. Next in loop, we have rare genetic disorders which have been instrumental in popularizing the Mendelian genetics. Likewise, the talks on mitochondrial disorders, dermatological conditions, as well as deep clinical phenotyping enriches the session across dimensions. As we thread through various early and late onset genetic conditions in different sessions, we have tried our best to incorporate the contemporary knowledge of prenatal diagnosis, prevention strategies, screening, and pre-implantation genetic diagnosis into the talks, along with excerpts on treatment, management, transplantation, and targeted therapy for a holistic experience. I urge everyone to visit our e-poster using the QR code that is displayed outside and also listen to the brief explanatory video uploaded onto our website. Hope everyone enjoys the conference as much as the organizing team had in working towards it. Thank you.
It is my privilege to introduce Professor Edward Tobias, Professor of Genetic Medicine at Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, University of Glasgow, UK, who will deliver the inaugural note. Okay, I'm sorry, there's some technical issue. We'll proceed with the next session. We now move on to our stakeholders panel discussion. To host the panel discussion, I call upon Dr. Zubeida and Dr. Gayatri Iyer as co-host. Good afternoon, everyone. I request two of the volunteers, Mr. Soham and the others, to please arrange the chairs onto the dais. So, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the 9th Annual International Conference of the Board of Genetic Counseling India 2024, entitled Genomic Variants in Personalized Healthcare, Genetic Counselors as Facilitators. It is with great pleasure and excitement
that we gather here today, bringing together experts, professionals, and enthusiasts from around the globe to delve into the latest advancements and insights in genetic counseling. This conference serves as a pivotal platform for collaboration, innovation, and knowledge exchange. Over the next 2 days, we have the opportunity to engage in thought-provoking discussions, learn from esteemed speakers that will shape the future of genetic counseling in India and beyond. We are honored to have each one of you here representing diverse perspectives and expertise that will undoubtedly enrich our collective understanding of genetic healthcare. So once again, a heartfelt welcome to each and every participant. Let us make this 9th Annual International Conference a memorable and impactful experience. With that, I now request all our dignitaries to please come onto the dais. I request Dr. Ramesh Hariharan, CEO of Strand Life Sciences, to please come onto the dais. Do we have Dr. Ramesh here? Not, then we'll proceed with the other panelists.
The next panelist is Ms. Sonali Srungaram, founder and MD of Sion Cancer Institute.
I request Dr. Rakesh Mishra, Director, Tata Institute of Genetics and Society to please come onto the dais.
Next, we welcome Dr. Sudha Rao, founder of Dhiti Omics, to come to the dais.
I request Mr. Prasanna Shirol, co-founder and executive director, ORDI, to please come onto the dais.
We welcome Dr. Pragna Rao, former Pro Vice Chancellor of Kasturba Medical College, to the dais. Yes, come.
Welcome, Dr. Ramesh. Please, we request you to come onto the dais. I now request Dr. Sudha Warrior, Principal, Faculty of Biomedical Science and Technology, SRMC, to please come onto the dais.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Edward Tobias from Glasgow in
Yes. We welcome you all. Everything.
Scotland is a beautiful country, but not so warm. Today it is only 13 degrees centigrade, and I'm guessing it's a bit warmer where you are. Anyway, it's a huge honour to be invited to give this talk, and I'm enormously grateful to the organisers for the invitation. I spend much of my own time developing free online educational resources and serving on education committees. In fact, it was through my work for the Hugo International Education Committee that I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to meet and discuss genetics education in detail with your president, Dr. Annie Hassan. She is an internationally respected expert on genetics and molecular medicine. I've actually previously visited India in the past, and I spent a month training at the CMC hospital in Vellore, and then travelled to many places, including Bangalore, Mahabalipuram and Ooty, and then Trivandrum in Kerala, and went all the way north to Shimla, north of Delhi, by train. And you might not be surprised to hear that it took me, I think, 3 days, and I think that's a journey of over 3,000 kilometres, so maybe that's not surprising. And then more recently I was invited to Chandigarh to give a couple of talks, and I visited Jaipur as well. So I'm actually very sad not to be able to join you in person, especially as the programme for this important conference looks absolutely superb. Today, after some background information, I'm going to describe some free educational resources that I've developed, which I hope might be useful to you, including an online guide to resources around the world, a set of smartphone genomics educational apps, and a new online course. I work as an NHS consultant, clinical geneticist at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow. And you can see that hospital at the top right there. But I also work as Professor of Medical Genetics for the University of Glasgow, which you can see in the picture on the bottom right. And that's one of the oldest universities in the world, actually. There I run a one-year master's program, an MSc in Medical Genetics and Genomics, together with a team. And I also run the undergraduate medical school teaching for genetics, and recently revised the Scottish curriculum for genetics undergraduate teaching for medical students. I'm also a member of a multidisciplinary genomics team in the hospital, where we carry out whole exome and whole genome sequencing of patients with rare disorders. As I mentioned, I teach medical genetics and genomics for undergraduate medical students, about 400 of them, as well as many dental students. And I have the privilege of teaching about 40 to 60 students on the master's program that I mentioned, many of whom are from India. And in fact, several graduates of the MSc are now running genetics labs around the world. I'm privileged to be an invited member of 4 or 5 international education committees, including the Hugo International Education Committee that I co-chair, the ESHG, European Society of Human Genetics Education Committee, the steering group of the ECMGG professional exam for genetic professionals, and I'm involved in creating a free, comprehensive, interactive electronic textbook called Apogee, which is run from Paris, and that is online already. I'm an active member of 2 Hugo education subcommittees in clinical genomics and genomic medicine, and also genomics education for the general public. And I personally created and currently run the Hugo International Education web pages, which have been visited from over 100 countries, and they provide links to educational resources, patient-centered organizations, online resources, and courses and professional societies worldwide. So I'm going to talk now about an online guide to resources that's separate from that I have created and think might be useful to you. And this is the website eurogems.org, and it's a guide to international genetic and genomics free educational resources around the world that I've selected. And there are over 110 of the links to these resources, and I'm constantly adding more. It's now being used from over 140 countries, and its use is increasing exponentially. And I have different pages for different audiences, including genetics professionals, universities and students, patients and families, non-genetics professionals, secondary or high schools, primary schools, and also a page on ethical, legal and social issues. It's all been carefully checked and approved by the European Society of Human Genetics Board, and it's used not only by the ESHG but also by Hugo International. It's been peer-reviewed and published, and it's been fully translated into Spanish, Portuguese and French by genetics professionals. And the QR code for it is on the left there. And this is an example of one of the translated pages. This is the French page. As I said, it's been visited from many countries around the world, and there have been many visitors from Europe, but also many from India too, and including from Bangalore. So the QR code's there, and the web address is eurogems.org, and I'd encourage you to visit it and have a look, and I'm sure some of the links will be useful to you. I also wanted to mention some smartphone apps that I created. and have uploaded to the app stores and are now freely available. So the Clinical Genomics Guide app provides straightforward genomics and bioinformatics explanations in a free smartphone app, together with an accompanying self-assessment quiz app. And here are some of the terms for which there are illustrated explanations within the app. As I mentioned, these are free, and here are some of the pages of the app that you can see, some of the screens, including an explanation of the CIRCOS genome plot, also of the Integrated Genomics Viewer, or IGV, and third generation sequencing, together with the self-assessment quiz app. So these have been peer-reviewed, published and shared on both the Apple and Android app stores. They've been used by over 5,000 individuals in over 70 countries, and they work offline, which might be useful if you travel on an underground train. They have been rated 5 stars, fortunately, on the Apple App Store, and I've been told that they can help you succeed at genomics or genetics related interviews. The web address that you can navigate to with your smartphone or use the QR code is genomicsapps.org. Okay, so I'm now going to go on and talk about an online course that I developed, actually a few online courses that might be useful to you. Hopefully there will be. So first of all, I was previously involved in co-creating 3 massive open online courses, or MOOCs, which have been created on the futurelearn.com platform. And these courses have covered genetic disorders and DNA, also genomic medicine, and one on cancer genomics. And these MOOCs, or massive open online courses, include much information required by various healthcare professionals, even non-genetics healthcare professionals, and cover genome structure and function, phenotyping, NGS, panels, exomes, whole genome sequencing, variant classification, and databases for further information. These courses have been taken by general practitioners, hospital physicians, and students, over 45,000 learners in 115 countries. So they have also been created or brought together as a so-called expert track course on genetics and genomics by FutureLearn, where they've combined all 3 of the MOOCs into one larger course. However, my feeling about genomics courses is that they are often long, lasting for several hours, and they're often not free, especially to non-UK based professionals. Also, they're often only available for a short time, like 1 or 2 weeks, and then can't be accessed again without a fee. And they often are not available year-round and can be hard to navigate, and often don't take advantage of the best existing resources available elsewhere worldwide. So I've created a new course, which I've called Genomics in Brief, and it's completely free. It's self-paced, so you do it in your own time, whenever you want, and without time restriction, and it's short and concise and easily navigated, and it starts at an introductory level. There's the QR code for it there. So it contains summaries of essential points in each section. It contains self-assessment quizzes with feedback and scoring. Also links to carefully chosen high-quality short pre-existing teaching articles, animations, videos, and further information from different international institutions that are well known. For example, in the USA, the Jackson Lab and Johns Hopkins, and in the UK, Genomics England and the Wellcome. Also Europe and Australian institutions as well, and each part of it is generally just a few minutes long, but it contains links to much longer and more detailed courses as well. So the first section, for example, contains information about gene expression and genes, The second section contains information about, for example, genomic test types and their uses and consent. And the third section talks about understanding test results and variant interpretation, the HGBS nomenclature, and then there's information about how to find condition-specific information for medical professionals and patients themselves, and the different sources available. I've also included many links to further reading and other resources around the world, and also links to much more detailed courses. The first draft version of the course is available at genomicsinbrief.org. The QR code is on the right there, and I'd like to thank Professor Devendra Kumar and Professor Ada Hanosh for their help in creating and designing the course, and I plan to now improve and expand it with further help from Eager International, and I've made a draft version available online, as I said. It's there for you to try, and hopefully you can provide me with some feedback, and I'm hoping that it will be useful globally. I thought I'd mention something completely different, which is a molecular virtual reality app that I have co-created, which allows the user to visualize three-dimensional molecular models to understand the structural effects of protein variants. And the app is compatible with the over 150,000 protein and DNA structures in the Protein Data Bank. It was actually shortlisted for a UK Technology Award, and I've shared it via edify.ac. So this could be useful to you if you are lucky enough to have a virtual reality headset, which have become a lot cheaper to acquire, or you might have one of these at the institution where you work. So here, for example, is a view of two molecules side by side. These are the BRCT domain of BRCA1 protein, with a mutant version on the left and a wild type or normal version on the right. And the app allows you to zoom in and actually enter the molecule, so to speak, in virtual reality, and of course rotate it around. You can take pictures using a virtual camera within the virtual world. You can find specific amino acids that you're interested in, and you can take very precise measurements across active sites or regions of the protein in fractions of a nanometer, and look at the differences between the mutant and normal versions. Something else I thought I'd mention to you is that I have been creating, together with others, creating a free online interactive textbook called Apogee, and it's for genetics professionals worldwide, and it's still being created, but it's available online. So in summary, I've been involved in creating many online educational resources. I've selected a few that I think would be most useful to genetic counsellors: the online resources guide at eurogems.org, a set of smartphone apps, which you can access via genomicsapps.org, and a new concise genomics course at genomicsinbrief.org. I'd very much appreciate it if you could use the QR code on the right, or the web address underneath, to give me your anonymous opinions, and as that would be very valuable to me in designing new resources for genomics education in the future. So please do use that QR code and enter your answers, which is anonymous. And I intend, if I get enough responses, to collect the data and make that available at the Genomics in Brief website so that you can have a look. So I want to say a huge thank you to all colleagues that I've got in Glasgow University, the National Health Service, HUGO and ESHG committees. I'm happy to discuss and collaborate to enhance global genomics education. Please do contact me on edward.tobias@glasgow.ac.uk. And I really do hope to be able to visit India again in person and meet more of you. Okay, all the best. Goodbye from Glasgow.
Thank you, Dr. Tobias, and we apologize for the change of the sequence. We thank all the dignitaries on the dais, and we request our esteemed faculty to speak a few words on the role of personalized genomics and genetic counselors in current day healthcare. Let us start with Dr. Ramesh Hariharan.
Audible, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's great to see all, this sort of an event that brings together different people and focusing in the community and focusing on counseling. I guess I don't have to underscore the importance of counseling in the last 7-8 years since genomic testing sort of has taken root in this country, and it's becoming increasingly adopted. We've seen the complexity come to the fore, all of the different sorts of challenges in bridging the technical world with many different types of variants and many different shades of knowledge about these variants with the eventual consumer or the patient who's trying to grapple with all of this and trying to figure out, how to make sense of all of this, and genomic counselors in between trying to bridge these worlds. So clearly this is going to be a very important role, but increasingly a very challenging role. Every day in our practice, we run into issues where things other than the norm, away from the norm, show up. A few days ago, we had this cystic fibrosis case where there was this strange variant we reported. The doctor called back saying, this sort of a variant, it looks like it's not very significant. It's and then we looked at it carefully and explained that if you have 13 copies of this, it's a problem, but if you have 12 or 11 copies, it's not a problem, right? I mean, it's at that level of detail that we are operating nowadays. And all in all, we've just started the journey. We are only looking at Mendelian monogenic diseases, the easiest ones to interpret, the easiest ones to convey, and there is so much complexity there already. Imagine 5 years from now when we start delving into the world of polygenic diseases, where we start looking at multiple combinations of multiple variants and what implications it might have. I think there's going to be exciting times in the future and challenging times for genomic counselors who've got to grapple with all of this. It's how to take this technical complexity and explain to a patient what it really means for them in the face of all the unknowns that we deal with. There's some knowns, which is still, I would say, a minority. I mean, there's just so much more that's unknown. And so hats off to, I guess, this entire community, and we'll hopefully see very interesting times in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hariharan. Now we specifically have a specific question for you. So as you have said, having significant experience working with advanced DNA sequencing technology for genetic diseases and their diagnosis, which is now more affordable in India as well, Can you discuss the key technological advancements that have enabled this affordability and their impact on the healthcare accessibility?
So when we all started, maybe it's close to a decade ago now, it's already 2024, yeah, around 2014, thereabouts. I remember we were offering tests at about 30,000, 40,000 rupees, thereabouts. And that itself was such a big advance compared to, 15 years before that, where nobody had ever sequenced a whole human genome, right? And around 2003, that happened, cost, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars. Here we were in 2014 doing it at 30 or 40,000 rupees, and now we are, whatever the community is down to 10,000, let's say order of maybe 10 to 15,000 rupees and so on, right? So what has enabled all of this? A lot of that enablement obviously has come from the West, where the confluence of molecular biology, billions of molecular biology reactions being run in controlled situations in a semiconductor chip or monitored by cameras and software that converts all of those images automatically into sequence calls, and then further software that takes all of those sequence calls, compares them against what is known in literature, what is known in databases, converts all of that eventually into maybe 50 or 100 genes that humans have to look at the end of the day. Right? That's a huge amount of advancement that's happened. What is left still today is that the last 50 genes, humans have to still look at it, and that still takes a lot of effort to do. And hopefully the advancements over the last couple of years have given us hope. Who thought until 2 or 3 or 4 years ago that large language models will reach where they've reached today? Today, most programmers, think little before they type their English prompt in one of these large language models. The program comes out, they paste it in, start editing from there. And that has really, saved a lot of time. I'm hopeful that that will allow us to take this last mile of 50, 100 genes and get to reports much faster than we can today. So those are, big advancements, a few that I've listed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ramesh. I now request Ms. Sonali to share her views.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here with you all. I've known Annie ma'am for almost 7 years now and been associated with the conference for about 5. And I think each year I'm surprised to see how large the group becomes, how many more people come, and the role that genetic counselors are playing keeps changing all over. Bit of an introduction. I think I've mentioned this to a few of you, but I'm the managing director of Scion Cancer Clinics. In a nutshell, we run a distributed cancer hospital. We recruit genetic counselors as well. They play a very big role in the work that we do. But today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how we in the industry see the role of genetic counselors changing. Genetic counselors have had a tough job as it is to try and make sure that they act as liaisons between doctors and patients to translate and communicate information. But one of the few things that you will notice as you start understanding and reading the industry is that healthcare models are changing, right? You would have never heard of cancer hospitals being distributed. One of the questions we get asked is, what does it even mean? It means that we can have a patient 200 kilometers away from an urban setup and we will still do chemotherapies and surgeries there, right? Keeping all the clinical protocols intact. So today, as we run our work in Telangana and Andhra, our primary places of work are Hyderabad and Visakhapatnam. But we service districts like Srikakulam and Vijayanagaram, for those of you who know the topography, and also places like Nizamabad, Sangareddy, Miryalgoda, Nalgonda, right? So these are all very remote areas, but we have 30% of our patients coming from there. In fact, if you actually look at cancer statistics, only 10% of cancer patients live in metros where 90% of the facilities exist. So if today a genetic counselor is going to look for a role in the oncology sector, the question will be is, would you now be relevant only if you work in a traditional incumbent cancer hospital? Or would you actually look to servicing patients, 90% of whom are living extremely far off, right? We talked about everything from emotional intelligence to the issues that you have to deal with, communication, translation. Now imagine all of this getting complicated just by geography. We had a lot of you talk about the environment in which you're going to be able to deliver care, right? From bottles of water to tissues and that face-to-face connect. What if you can't even see them? Right? What if it's just a mobile phone separating you and your patient? Does it mean that your patient cannot get the services that they require? The point is, as genetic counseling grows, you will also have to innovate. I mean, a lot of you are young, and that's a huge advantage, right? You don't type, or rather, you don't write as fast as you type. And that's a big advantage for a lot of you. But if you can embrace technology, if you can be a lot more flexible, a lot more innovative, I think you can actually take your services to the sector where you really are needed. There are a few challenges which the healthcare sector in India and genetic counselors specifically will need to now take on board. One, you will all have to get used to the fact that we treat chronic diseases nowadays. 70% of Indian deaths are chronic diseases, but all our healthcare system still works like you're dealing with an acute condition. Patient comes to the hospital, you will deal with the patient, patient goes away. If 80% of the patient's time is away from the hospital, what are you doing then? Should you have a protocol to still connect with your patient? Or is your patient only when they are in that premises of the hospital? We have focused a lot on treating diseases. What about prevention and screening? We do not have the resources to treat the number of cancer cases in India. We have 42 lakh cancer patients, 3,000 oncologists, that's it. And 300 genetic counselors. How are we going to beat the odds? Right? How will you actually take your services to the sectors where it is really relevant? Focusing on screening, focusing on prevention will have to become something that we start thinking about. The new skill set that the younger generation has to learn, very unfortunately, is flexibility. Right? You want the larger pay packages, but you want standard work hours. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. The older sector still says, listen, we were happy to get a job, so we did whatever was needed. But you want the work-life balance, you want the environment. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit of a juggling act for those who are entering the workforce, right? Because models like ours are going to challenge your current thinking and the way in which you work with your patients. You will have to need to adapt. You will have to need to change. It is, though, not on a bad note that I want to end. It is a very exciting time for genetic counselors. You are in huge need. I have constant battles with my oncologist saying, you are not the genetic counselor, let the genetic counselor do their job. And that is required, right? It is horses for courses. Yes, for those who want to clap. It is very, very true, right? You are the experts and I don't think others can do your job. But you will also have a tough time trying to find your way in this new, constantly evolving workforce. But for those of you who are getting into the workforce, you're young, you're eager, you're capable, do learn to be flexible, be a little more innovative, the same way you've adopted technology. Try and make sure you adopt new ways of working too. And I think you're going to have a fantastic future ahead. Thank you.
As an extension, we have a question for you. With a unique cancer setup that you have, how have you integrated genetic testing and personalized medicine into your practice? And how do you measure the effectiveness of these services in improving patient satisfaction and outcomes?
It's a very big question. I shall try and answer it as much as I can. We knew from early days that genetic counseling had to be a big part of what we do. We are talking about cancer after all, where there is a very large genetic predisposition to many cancers also. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy where the oncologist was the center of the cancer treatment universe to try and bring in genetic counselors too. We had to innovate with several models. And what we finally decided to do was we actually offer genetic counseling free for all our IP patients. Right? We subsidize the cost. And for us, if you pay for the molecular testing, we'll do the pedigree analysis free. What we are trying to do is understand what the cancer landscape in India is. Right? Data is going to become very, very important. So for us, it was more important to understand where our patients are coming from and what they're dealing with. So there was one part of it that we innovated and said, okay, pedigree analysis free. And if anyone does molecular testing, then fair enough. That's what you pay for. It was tricky to do. I mean, initially, Annie ma'am always challenges me on this. We talked about somatic and germline. And initially, everything we did was somatic. Right now, we at least have 30% of our patients picking up germline. And Venkatesh, Ramya, Agastya, who all work with us, Just as some of the data they were sending me yesterday, 10% of our rural patients now do molecular testing as well. Right? So if this is 200 kilometers away from Hyderabad, then they're doing a fantastic job in making sure that the word gets out. But we will have a big challenge in trying to make sure it becomes part and parcel of what we do. And I think we're going to keep trying to be innovative. Not everyone accepts it. It's a big task. It takes us 3 weeks at times, even if you offer it free, for someone to agree to do the pedigree. So there is a lot of trauma involved, a lot of stigma associated. So there's a lot of work to be done to overcome it. We talked about emotional intelligence, counseling capability, all of that's required. But we're going to keep trying, we're going to keep pushing. I won't say we have the answers yet, but we're certainly going to do our best.
Thank you. Now we request Dr. Rakesh Mishra to give his views.
Okay. So thank you all for first inviting me to this very relevant conference for an institute which many of you may not have heard. So I'll just take 1 minute to explain what is Tata Institute for Genetics and Society, where I work. So this is a institute funded by Tata Trust with the one-liner that we use high-end science to solve societal problems. And we have further refined our target that we solve the problem using the science, but we solve the problem that is economically viable and socially accepted. We don't solve the problem and leave it in the lab. So we judge ourselves whether a solution is reached society or not. And in that context, the tribes like genetic counselors become so important because you are the people who connect us to society. So we have society or the patient. So we have 3 programs. We work on crop improvement for climate resilient crops and infectious diseases, in which we do a lot of surveillance, AMR and vector control. But our 3rd major program is on rare genetic disorders, which is relevant for this conference. And that is becoming, all disease susceptibility or phenotypes, all of them eventually are related to genetics. What is changing is the way we look at genetics. With genomics, the genome sequence availability, now we have started to understand more and more the genotype-phenotype correlations. And that is where people like you have become so effective. Now you can very precisely tell a lot of things about phenotype, its variations, penetrance, many things you can talk about because now you are having more and more data and correlation with that. And this is going to be better and better. There are every prediction that in coming years, genome sequencing, the cost will become irrelevant. Already we are doing it at population scale. So in few years, it will become few thousand and 4,000 or 5,000 and everybody will do it. It's like having a dinner somewhere. So with that kind of data and that kind of correlation, lots of system is now data is being recorded, being stored and shared and analyzed. So this is enabling you to now help people out in unprecedented way. You can give the advice of what they can do, what kind of medicine they can take and so on. So for instance, for rare genetic disorder, you have 2 kinds of things that we need to do. One is after doing the screening, more and more assays being available, more and more diagnostic available, and if we can do screening at population scale, and I hope in 5 years, at least at the best 7-8 years, no child will go unscreened, and NBS should become a permanent feature of everything. Otherwise, it's very criminal not to do screening, for which we have prevention, treatments available, and lots of disabilities can be avoided. So with this kind of information coming in place, one thing is to give genetic counseling for prevention of the disease. But in rare genetic disorders, maybe sometimes in cancer also, genetic counselors are a very tough job because what you have to counsel is very, very difficult thing because there is no solution. And then still you have to keep the hopes high, keep them in good spirits and so on. Those situations will probably change. Now there are new technologies coming in place where things like mRNA therapeutics or in vivo gene therapy, they are opening the way that with our out of pocket we can get the treatments done like we do any other treatments. And TIGS is working very hard to see that how fast and how affordable manner we can bring this technology. And I can tell that science-wise and technology-wise, we are making really terrific progress, so much so that we are putting pressure on the regulators that you have to make it happen, because these are peculiar things. We'll not be able to do trials and all like other diseases, because number of cases are going to be very few. So they are with us. That's very good news that ICMR, CDSCO, they all work with us, and we have regular meetings to find out ways how to go about this. And that's where even precision medicine comes. Like rare genetic disease is like precision medicine. Each number is very small. Technology is there. Now we can design and do mutation specific corrections, which will be eventually the in vivo gene therapy, which will be affordable. So I think while research institutions and industry partnership will make technology available, will make technology affordable, but to implement it to the society, which is the most crucial part. We can find ingredients, we can make the good food, but somebody has to give it to somebody to eat in a proper way. So that's where communities like Genetic Council is becoming so important. And I'm very proud to have one of your product like Gayatri is our young faculty. And after her coming to TICS, our perception has changed, our network connectivity with the patient groups, clinicians has changed, because she gives a professional explanation to things, while we start getting into bands and mutations very quickly. So that is very helpful, and I can see how it is helping us connecting with the people in society for what we are working. So I'm very thankful to this effort. I just, looking at me, you can tell I know Andy Hassan from previous century, now half century. We had some time in CCMB together in very early days in Lalji's floor. So thank you again very much, and I'm happy to answer any question that I can.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh. That was really inspiring to hear that an institute where the translational interface is there, the genetic counselors are also playing a very important role over there. So with that, I would like to introduce one important question. So in an institute like yours, TIGS, what about the opportunities for genetic counseling internships at your organization? And if they are there or if they're not there, how do you think we have to design a module where it is mutually beneficial, both for the institute as well as the genetic counselors?
I think Gayatri can also answer these questions she may be having, but we are very happy to have interns who can work with Gayatri. And we have, by the way, we also have a social scientist, a full-fledged senior faculty who has a social science degree and connects all our programs to society and brings what society needs to us, so that we do that in the lab. Because we are very program driven. We don't, some of you may realize that we don't give marks if you publish paper. That's not important. We don't work for referees and editors. We work for people, for our funders who give us the support. So this brings us people like genetic counselors. If they are doing course, we'll be very happy to have them, as many as we can. For simple reasons, because they open our eyes, and we have all the tools, but what to address, how to prioritize, where to focus depends on the need, and that they are the one who can do the best. And at the same time, we are in a campus where we have institutions, we call it Bangalore Life Science Cluster. We are away from ISC, so we can say that. So we have institutions like NCBS, CCAMP, INSTEM, along with TIC, and then we are in broad campus of Agriculture University. So we have very a terrific academic intellectual environment. So the interns who will come, they will have a very large exposure of various kind of science and even the relevant science for the society. So they also will be benefited, and not to tell all the technology and instrumentation and facilities we have, which are freely accessible to everybody. So I think that will be something I'll be very happy to have, and I can assure you that the interns who will come will get enriching experience, and not just working for some a particular scientist.
Excellent. That was the best inspiring sentence we all have heard today. at least till now. And thank you, Dr. Mishra. Yeah. Now I request Dr. Sudha Rao to share her views.
Actually forgot what I'm supposed to share my views on, but I'll probably speak on, technology being core at heart. What I have seen, I think early 2014, as Ramesh mentioned, few companies, I think Bangalore is proud of hosting almost all of the initial players in the clinical diagnostic market. And this was an outcome of our understanding of the human genome, or so we thought, right? So 20 years ago, first genome was published. What happened was that, of course, technology evolved, not just in the lab side, which is your molecular biology, but also engineering, instrumentation, data analytics. And more importantly, I think, understanding of the diversity of human genomes. We still have challenges that not all populations are well represented to know this or understand this diversity, but we're getting there. And I think one of the important contributions that have happened is that India has on its own now several million genomes sequenced, not as a whole, but as panels or exomes, both in private hands and institutions, government institutions. Having said that, I'm surprised also, I think we had in an earlier meeting, Jayesh is here, a question of what does all of this understanding hold for us as a human population, right? Is it just testing a patient who is sick, or is it something that we can use for predicting the outcomes, or am I susceptible to something? Do I have a risk for a disease? So I think these things have sort of now caught up, and I'm sure many of you have heard of these tests that are available for predictive testing based on your genome information. And I've had the privilege of working with Dr. Villu Patel on one of these projects for identifying high-risk, smokers, for example. Do they carry any mutations that we can detect early? And this is not on the, not just on the genetic inheritance, but also those that you get because of influence of environment, which is your cancer, right? So can we detect cancer early? Forget about PET scans, forget about mammograms. Can we just draw a couple of ml of your blood and tell you what is your risk? Are you likely to get cancer next year? So these are what I think technologies have evolved to giving to a patient. And just imagine the complexity of technology, information, and then another layer of complexity of the social context, which is what I think very important function that the genetic counselors do in this current age of genetic testing, which is we've had quite a number of young couples, right? Maybe some distant family history. What is my risk if I have a baby, and what is the risk of the baby carrying this mutation or this disease? How do you handle this on a very routine basis, right? So it's not that they're affected by disease, but how do you counsel? So there is pre-test counseling, there is post-test counseling, and understanding both genetics, inheritance. There's a lot of complexity. It's not just single nucleotide variations. We talk about, autosomal dominant recessive disorders, incomplete penetrance, structural variants, epigenetics, so many different variations. How do you explain this to a common man who has probably read about cells in school and then forgotten about it, right? So I think that's a very big responsibility that counselors have, and being up to date. So a part of the training system for counselors should incorporate these aspects of just making the understanding better, and how do you communicate this to the patient, both as a pre-test counseling and post-test. And also very important to have the social construct in India, where Dr. Nalini from NIMHANS used to, I think in India before this whole concept of genetic counseling came in, doctors used to do that, right? So she used to say, I don't tell that this is inherited from the mother at all. What's the need? They'll probably separate if I tell them. And, so there is this context to be aware of, and I think counselors again play a very, very important role in breaking the bad news, in comforting, in telling what the future holds, how can you deal with it. So kudos to the gang here who's doing a great job. So that's my perspective on, genetic testing. And
We have a question. With your extensive experience in neurobiology and biotechnology, which are the innovative genomic technologies do you believe hold the most promise for advancing diagnostics in rare genetic disorders?
I don't think there's any one technology that's working in silos and saying this is one thing that has made a big difference. It's been a combination of many things that have come together. And we're also now talking about, in many fields, including how to draft an email to how do I interpret my report. We're just sort of going beyond human to artificial intelligence, right? So because these are all extremely data intensive kind of tests. And so I think that will be sort of one game changing thing that will happen.
The omics way for diagnosis?
Absolutely. I'm not sure you've heard of, proteomics is coming in, metabolomics as well. It's not enough to just look at your DNA and RNA variants, but what is actually functional, what is, the protein, how is it coming up? And there are now very high throughput methods like, I think, SomaLogic, which is doing about 11,000 proteins in just 50 microliters of serum. So new things are coming up in terms of technology, and we have a lot to look forward to in terms of what things can come up in the future.
His views.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Annie, ma'am, and the organizing committee for inviting me. Whenever I think about genetic counselor, I remember the advertisement, "Jor ka jhatka dheere se lage." From last 10 years, we handle rare disease helpline, where we address a lot of queries from the parents. Earlier, most of the queries used to come without a genetic counseling, but they may have a diagnosis or without a diagnosis, or may have visited many hospitals and doctors. So we used to say that you should go for a genetic counseling. The question is why? But when we force and when they come back, believe me, they used to forget what the problem is, but they start admiring the genetic counselor, saying that they explained me very beautifully, very simple. Now I understood. That means they've forgotten what's the problem with their child. But there are the satisfaction saying that they understood the problem fully. Okay, they understood what's going to happen in future. They know what decision I have to take. I think that is very important. I think that is where the genetic counselor plays an important role. Second one is, when it comes to genetic counselor, I always feel still there is an awareness required at all level. Because whenever the patient calls from even the best of the best hospital, he may not have undergone a genetic counseling because doctor takes that role. And half the time they don't understand what the doctor tells. And when it comes to the parent, educated parent, there is a likely chance that what doctor has told in the language and the technical jargons understood. But when it comes to middle, average educated, where the mother is not very educated, doctor only talks to the husband. He is not more interested or keen to understand what is the problem with the son, because he has made up his mind that, okay, my son has a problem, it's okay. But the mother one is more interested, but he doesn't understand what the doctor would have told. I think there is where we need to address this gap. Another area which I'm not saying obviously everybody spoke about importance of genetic, and having traveled BGCI 9 years and having so many things, I don't have to talk about the importance. But I'm saying where the gaps are, because wherever I've seen, I thought it is the right. Then there is a lot of need in the genetic counselors in the rural setup, because more than 90% patient comes from the rural setup. And even the rural doctors are not aware about the modern technology, genetics, genomics. Okay, they just refer. But when they refer here, there is a lot of, cost involved in terms of number of man-hour, because they have to spend looking for genetic counselor, doctors, etc. If that can be addressed there itself, because, and also, there is a habit that more family members come for a counseling to understand it is not just a mother and a father. So if we can penetrate more on a rural, that is what it helps our patient community is what I feel, which is missing. Obviously for various region, everybody, still there is a gap. You are finding job, you are in the metros and the big hospital, but still 90% of the opportunity lies in rural India is what I can see. If somebody can go and establish now, that is a future. Because genetics have already gone to the rural. Even the taluka level doctor is writing a genetic test, and more than 50% of the patient comes to us where they have a genetic report, but they may not have a clinical diagnosis, no MRI, no X-ray, but they will have a genetic report. I think that gap need to be plugged. So what I'm saying, there is a lot of opportunity. You guys are adding a lot of value, very important to our patient community. And one more thing which I would like to add is that after genetic counseling, I think you may have to fit in somewhere adding another interaction with the family, maybe after 3 months or 6 months down the line. One is to understand what happened, maybe in a hospital setup where the patient is still within the hospital premises, he may come back or you may get the feedback. But in most of the cases, you don't know what has happened, whether they have taken action based on your recommendation, whether they have met the doctor or thing. So if you can build in, or if there is a follow-up query, that will also help patients. Sometimes they may have certain queries, but again, they may not come back to you. I think if you have to make that full last mile connectivity complete and maybe, patient service, I think that is where we need to look. I don't know how we can fit. Coming back to genetics, definitely it has helped, especially the rare diseases, majority of them have solved. In terms of the pricing, yes, it has come down. India has the lowest, cost in the world, but still it is not sufficient for our patient because we do not have insurance, not covered by supporting the patient, government policy. So there is still a long way to go ahead. I was just discussing with Ramesh saying that still it has to come down, and every time we talk about pricing only. And in terms of the reporting also, still there is a gap between what doctor tells and what patient understands, especially the new age doctors who are not trained or who knows how to read a report and explain. They only say likely pathogenic is fine, but VUS is where the major problem, and we get a lot of those cases, and there is always a question mark on the parents. So those things need to be clubbed. In terms of the, definitely the genetic helps us early diagnosis, accurate diagnosis to take informed decision, helps us for family planning. All these things have solved many of the problems, and we're able to cut down the burden on the society. And one example I would like to quote, a few months back in US and Canada, where they are able to diagnose prenatally for the second baby, where Pompe was continuing, and they have started enzyme replacement therapy in the fetal itself. I think that is the kind of advance which genetic has made, to us. And very recently, I'm seeing now, it is also helping us for a drug discovery. There are a lot of companies who are coming on a personalized treatment level. Yesterday also I was saying, even if you have 1 or 2 patients, we'll be able to develop a therapy because there is a different mechanism. They have crowdsourced researchers, they start working on a smaller molecule, understanding. And even parents also comes, saying that I have this mutation, I want to do, drug development. They have all the information, but connecting the dots is missing. So I'm definitely saying the genomics has made an impact in rare diseases in solving many of our problems, taking informed decisions, planning in advance, family planning. And another thing which is also developing is we are getting a lot of calls now saying that I'm marrying my relative, where can I do counseling and which test should I do? I think there is a increased awareness, but as I told you, there is some gap lies between the medical fraternity, counselors, hospitals, patients. I think if you can club all of them, I think genetic counseling with the new genomics can definitely make a big impact on the community. Thank you.
Sanna sir, 1 second, we'll just change the mic. Okay, once we ask our question, we'll switch. So having said all that, one point which is not touched is about the developing the registries and about the patient care. What is the difference between any other professional entering the data into the registries and the genetic counselors providing the data to these registries?
I think patient registry and patient care are two different things. Okay, care comes mostly with a treatment, long-term supportive care and other things. Where patient registry is a long-term, where data is maintained, where you infer analysis from the data on various things. Currently, it is on a long-term treatment protocol to understand how each patient behaves for a treatment, without treatment, and what are the supportive care, how it is going to help in absence of a treatment, and also to develop a drug to understand the natural history, of the patient, various. But patient registry definitely helps in a long-term care, but in Indian scenario is still a long way to go because we do not have Indian patient registry maintained. It's just the beginning where ICMR has started in 2017, but it is only limited to few conditions and still it is not up to the expectation even after 5-6 years. And whatever patient registry data available is all in the US and Europe. But I don't think that is helping us, because if you look at some of the drugs which are developed, FDA approved drug, it behaves differently for an US population than when it comes to Indian population. That clearly says there is a importance of the patient registry, but in India we have yet to see that importance.
Thank you, Mr. Prasanna. I now request Dr. Pragna Rao to share her views.
Good afternoon, everybody. And at the outset, let me thank Dr. Annie Hassan and her team for inviting me here. My association with genetic counseling goes way back, more than 15 years, where 2007 to be precise, where a team of people who shared common diagnostic lab space came together and decided that there was a need for having a formalized curriculum to develop something that said, complete this and you get a certificate, or complete this or you get a degree. But we started this course in a small private hospital. So I will just call it Model A. We started this course in a small private hospital. And this private hospital had all the departments which would be necessary, including a molecular biology one, which would be necessary to completely diagnose a patient who had a genetic problem. We had a team of very enthusiastic teachers. Dr. Vijayalakshmi is here. I think Dr. Narayan Rao and so many of us who just got together because we were interested. And it fell upon me to give a structure to this very, very different thing. And we had collaborators from the US who were kind enough to give us MCQ questions, etc., and bring about a particular level to this course. And since this course was administered within a private institution and the certificate was awarded, it was a very, I would say, a very innocent kind of a course. It was made with an intention to develop a genetic counselor. And I think even this is not sufficient to bring about the number of genetic counselors which is needed by the community. we would have to look for something which is a very different model from other kinds of post-graduation, where probably you have multiple stakeholders coming together to formulate a kind of curriculum, maybe partly online, partly in, let's say, in a diagnostic lab, partly in a hospital, but at the end of it, getting a degree. Why do I stress on getting a degree? Because a student who's paid a fee and who has spent 2 precious years of their youth doing something, they want to know whether after this, will I be able to get a job here? What happens if I move abroad? Can I study further? Can I open my own enterprise? So with all this in mind, we need to look at a different model. And I believe that the new NEP, the education policy which has come in, gives us that freedom to do it. And that's why if you ask me, I would put that responsibility on BGCI and say, think of such an innovative model where you can increase the number of genetic counselors, which is very, very badly needed in the country today.
Thank you, Dr. Pragna. We have a question. How can academic institutions foster partnerships with biotech companies to enhance research and development in genetic counseling and precision medicine, ensuring effective translation into clinical practice?
First of all, I am not very optimistic about it. The reason being, academia and business run separately. And to tell a business of a diagnostic company that it's your responsibility to sponsor academia, I think is not fair. So let's look at it in a different model. What can happen is that a lot of academics in universities are a little ivory tower type of thing, where they don't know that there is a demand for something like a genetic counselor. So should we be able to, educate these people? So is there somewhere where you can use diagnostic companies? Yes, but as brand ambassadors, saying that, look here, you are such a great hospital, or you are such a great nursing home, or you are a fantastic university. Why don't you look at the option of having a kind of a course like this, and we are there to support you. And then say that these are the ways in which we can support, and these are the ways in which the academic institutions can support, and these are the way in which I was very impressed with what Dr. Megha said in the morning about the skills thing, and you bring in the apprenticeship aspect to this, and then form a very holistic thing. And I think Dr. Annie will agree with me that in all this we are forgetting one thing, and that is technology. We are all biologists and we tend to shut our minds to maths, physics and technology, but that needs to be part of the curriculum today. And how do you introduce all this into a common framework is the challenge, which I think a kind of subcommittee or a subgroup should be formed within the BGCI or within some knowledgeable base, where all these people come onto a common platform and evolve such a curriculum, which they then take and present to various universities or educational institutions and say, have a look at this. Thank you.
Dr. Sudha Arya, to give your views.
Thank you, first of all, Dr. Annie, for inviting me here. So I'm from Ramchandra Institute of Higher Education and Research, Srihar as it's called, from in Chennai. It's a part of Ramchandra Medical College, 40-year-old hospital. Before that, I was with Manipal Group, and that's where I met Dr. Pragna. I head the division of Institute of Biomedical Sciences. So here in this institute, we have about 4 to 5 programs, and most of these programs are closely related with genetic analysis, ranging from cancer diagnostics to stem cell technology to SNP analysis in most of the cancers, and then bioinformatic tools identifying new variants. So the uniqueness of our program, we're an educational institute, is that we closely work with the physicians. So most of our research topics have 50% of the actual patient samples. But a good 50 to 60% of our research is on SNP analysis. And as we speak, we find new variants, and there are PhD scholars coming out of it, and so on. And in addition to that, in the personalized medicine context, I would say something which is just now, which is just upcoming along with, in fact, MedGenome, which is a part of our, closely associated with our university, is in developing the personalized medicine platform with, CTCs, circulating tumor cells is one thing which is evolving, which we are in talks with. And in addition to that, mainly when you look at personalized medicine, it is beyond identifying diseases of various types, including cancers. We are looking at how, after treatment, how would we make a personalized, how would we educate the doctors based on the readouts of these CTC analysis? What would be the best drug response, or what would be the best panel of drugs to be given, or how is the drug response evolving after the treatment? All these things are still gray areas which has not been fully formulated. So we are developing, because of our strength with patient samples. That's something which is unique about Ramchandra, that we do have a huge profile of patient samples, which can be easily, which can be obtained by ethical approval. And some of our students are here also from human genetics. So that gives us a good platform to test all these design evolving technologies for creating personalized medicine platform. In addition to that, I would also say that is artificial intelligence in personalized medicine. Those are also topics that are evolving with our PhD and master students, wherein we have a good engineering strength. Besides being a medical college, Ramchandra is also an engineering, has a strong engineering faculty, and we are moving towards that also. So that is something which is which we can probably in few years from now we would be having some solid platform to test with real patient samples. So I just wanted to share these things in the context of genomics.
Thank you, Dr. Warrior. So with that, we also know that you also have the experience in Australia, working in Australia as well, apart from India. So how do you feel India is positioned, especially in stem cell therapeutics for neurodegenerative diseases?
Stem cell therapeutics is a long way off. But there are ethical issues still not ironed out with stem cell based therapy itself in neurodegeneration. But stem cell based diagnostic testing platform is something which I have developed myself and several other researchers from my institute and my previous institute. We've developed it's a rather challenging proposition to develop the neurodegenerative models, but we were kind of successful in developing Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and the rare disease ALS in a disease in a dish model. And from that, we could identify that that there are some specific parameters which which lead to these neurodegeneration scenario. Because we could start, we could evolve these models right from a non-degenerated neuronal cell to a completely degenerated format. So that we could, we could trace the entire journey. So from that, as a drug testing platform and as a drug discovery platform, it is very promising. But there is still some way to go for therapeutics. Cell-based therapy is some way of, it's not yet there. That's what my opinion is.
Thank you, Dr. Warrior. Now we open the panel to our audience to ask the questions.
Was right that as genetic counselors, we definitely want a salary, we want a job, we want everything. And for that I have fought, because I said we did it with passion. No, they need money. So everybody has to live, please. So they need a salary, they need a salary. So I try to say that, no, you cannot just do it with passion. Passion is good. Lakshmi is the one with the passion. I say passion with, remuneration. So now the question is, we agree, India being a developing country, we know we have a rural presence. We'll call it semi-urban. Rural is missing now. It's going away. But anyway, semi-urban. So how do we do it? The whole panel is here. We need academicians on the other side. We need researchers. We need technical people. We need Prasanna to help us with policies. But just on this platform itself, is there some consensus we can come to? That how do we do? One was, which we thought of, that industry, who is getting a major amount for the testing, they hire the genetic counselors and send them out. That was one. The other model was that the local, all teaching hospitals and medical colleges have a mandate to have a genetic counselor. So that was the way our healthcare system was built, that there are medical colleges, and medical colleges have different departments, so why not a genetic unit with a genetic counselor? So what is it that people on top would think would be a better idea? Of course, we need to train them, that I agree, no doubt, but
I fully agree, and as I said, if you think of a solution, if it is not economically viable, then we are kidding. We are not serious about it. So that is something and you don't expect young people to come and work without any salary. They also have their life, and we very much expect it. Otherwise, you will get non-serious people, part-time. They will come sometime and then suddenly disappear from scene. So it's a proper profession. They are going through serious training. I would say it's not really medical, like semi-medical kind of thing, where they have to understand the basics, which many doctors don't understand, and talk to people to convey. As somebody said, they have to give the bad news and then to console them, and they are doing their job so well, like Prasanna said, that people forget what it was. Right? So it's such an important thing. Ways of finding, you actually already said, I think the medical institutions should create this as a part. I mean, I'm just thinking loud, like we are doing something what we call as field action plans. So whatever we are doing, if this is, let's say we are addressing a particular genetic disorder in certain district or certain region where it's occurring a lot, and we are screening, and then a genetic council will be required to do that. So we want to put them in the field. And then once the screening is complete, they will follow the carriers and work for them. And alongside, keep doing genetic, along with genetic counseling, genetic literacy, and those sorts of activity around, because it's so important too. I think one can also consider by this approach, CSR fund to get diverted into it. So if we make proper organizations that can get support, there's a lot of CSR money available in the country. And if they see that their funding will go, which will help people who need in a very professional way and required way, so I think that should be possible to do. And so there has to be some formal organization who provides these services, and that can have, they can have some link with hospitals, some link with institutions like us, and there are many others who will be willing to do that. I think we have to think innovative, and I'm sure there are solutions. There's no money. It's very awkward to say, but I see that there's no money problem in this country. If you correct right plan, make right plan, there are people willing to help. And then, of course, it will be self-supporting also, because the outcome, the impact of this will be so much that people will invest in that.
I think for any new industry, I'll take a slightly macro view to all of this. I'm not from the healthcare sector. I came from IT, I came from consulting and moved to healthcare for personal reasons. But if I look at what the IT sector in India did, right? If you look at where their salaries were 20 years ago and where their most of you, when you come for interview, say, Madam, my classmate who's joining Deloitte makes this much, so mera kya hoga, right? So let me take that same example. I think for genetic counseling, for healthcare, if you try and draw parallels to other industries, we will have to start developing genetic counselors for the foreign markets and genetic counselors for the domestic markets. You will then, just like everybody else, have different levels of skills. Now, Surya talked about going to Singapore. Now, it did not happen overnight, right? The levels of skills that had to be developed. So if you feel you are going to invest in X, and you have to have a clear mapping, if I take this degree, this course, this is the kind of job I'm going to get. If I'm going to put in 4 or 5 years of rigorous work, effort, etc., then I get a chance to go abroad. So there has to be a bit of a mapping in terms of what you invest in and what you get. But if you actually start planning, then there are horses for courses, right? So someone who does today, if I take an IT example, academics, a lot of those creating programs, we will all have to think about how to place you. We need you. We just have to figure out how to, do a supply and demand match between the two of us. It is possible, and I'm very clearly telling you, where there is demand, there will be supply, and that will be met. You do not have to look forward to lower salaries. You can make very good salaries. We just need to figure out how to position you correctly. And once we get that match, I think we can do a really good job, but it will take some time and some thinking to do it.
I think in India today, if you see the number of tests that are being offered for genetic disorders, my guess is not more than 5% goes through any kind of counseling, pre or post-test counseling, right? So that is a big opportunity. Now, why is that not happening? Is probably because this is not still formalized or integrated into the testing market. What are the expenses for genetic testing? There's a reagent cost. There is an analysis cost, there's a consulting with the clinician cost, right? We've not incorporated the genetic counseling cost. And somewhere I think it has to mature into, as she's mentioning, that, when does it become a need? And I think the need is there, but it's not formally structured into genetic testing program or even the industry. Many of us do have genetic counselors, but are they on par with, if you see how many analysts are there versus how many counselors, I think the numbers are abysmal, right? So a change has to be brought about, and I think it's a fantastic idea what she's talking about. Follow the IT industry. It's been a role model for many things, and why not for this? Perhaps counselors can do consulting on their own. I know many of people who have worked with us in the past and have gone into being independent consultants, doing a lot of telecounseling. And that is a big opportunity where one can earn their own money. It's not necessary that corporates hire them. And that's how I think they will integrate into the system, and it will evolve to become more structured. That's my thinking.
Coming from the business background, I can only say, there is a need to position all of yourself, in the market, because you compete with one side MBBS, MD, genetic doctors. Okay, on the other side, because most of you do the same, you are able to diagnose, but you are not getting the due credit. How do you position yourself? I think that is one. For positioning, you need to do a lot of groundwork to talk about your own work. I think that is not coming out, because how many people in the outside know that, okay, genetic counselor is able to diagnose, able to do X, Y, Z. I think that communication, I also talked about the awareness. I think as a BGCI, as a council, you should talk about more awareness in general, promoting the genetic counseling itself. For example, maybe not right example since I cannot take, National Egg Coordination Committee. They said Sunday hoya Monday roj ka one day. That what the thing. Similarly, genetic counseling, you need to say it's an integral part of a mental, health and wellness, because mental health also being spoken about, in many areas where genetic counseling is an integral part of it when it comes to mental health. I think that positioning has to be done by BGCI as a whole in terms of communicating to the larger public importance of genetic counseling, how they can add value, what kind of work they can do. That is one. Second, I'm also saying most of the genetic counselors only run behind the jobs. I think there is a need to bring out the entrepreneurship in the genetic counseling, set up your own centers, show to the world saying that you can add value to in the health and wellness program. Because today there are many wellness centers are doing. If you look at wellness center, according to me, I don't think they are doing anything great. Okay, but they are able to make money, they are able to make a business case, but why not you? Because you can impact the entire healthcare system, especially the cancer, rare disease, genetic. There is a lot of opportunity, mental health. Three major importance, itself is very, very crucial, when it comes to counseling. I think it is a marketing is required is what I believe. You have everything, only thing, thoda hai, thoda ka zarurat hai types. Thanks. I'll come back.
Thank you. One of the things that becomes crucial is that if there is some kind of a rule, some kind of a legal requirement, some kind of you must do this if you need to survive kind of thing, that goes a long way to help. Let me give you an example. The National Medical Commission has made it mandatory in a lot of departments to hire non-medical people. In various things, you might have to, if you run an ophthalmology department, you need to have optometrists. If you do CT scan, then you need a CT technician there. And they even specify the numbers. 3 such people should be there. Or if there are a lot of people. You need midwives, you need a lot of non-medical technical professionals need to be in the department if that department needs to be recognized by the NMC. Unfortunately, so many colleges run DM genetics program. Nowhere does the NMC specify that you must have a genetic counselor in that department. So if there is enough movement within the group of genetic counselors to go to the NMC and say, if you could just introduce this, or if you have an oncology department, ensure that there is a genetic counselor. Imagine the number of medical colleges in this country. And by just doing this one small thing, at least the title, genetic counselor, comes into the vocabulary of medical professionals, and then they start hunting, and then the demand grows, and so on and so forth. Thank you. Yeah, they're at least teaching. Yes, they're at least teaching.
Can I make one point and then, yes. If you look at the whole industry, just want to give a macroeconomic view of the genomic testing industry. Of course, 10 years ago, there was very little, right? And then over the last 10 years, things have evolved. But the industry is still not in a stage where I think we've reached levels where we can call it sustainable, right? So the next 10 years is where that has to happen. And as that happens, you will see that more and more employment for more and more people gets generated. Today, we are in a stage where the cost of testing plus the cost of, the people involved in the field, the sales, the collection, the logistics, easily exceeds the price that individuals pay, right? So, but the industry is running because of the fact that it is impactful, that it has future promise, and that with scale, with technological advancements, with maturity, all of this will come to sustainability. So I think over the next 10 years, every industry goes through the cycle with nothing special about genomic testing. Everything goes through a cycle where the first several years are, people are trying to find their moorings, people are trying to, the jobs will come and go, all of that will happen. Then slowly it will start building up. At some point of time, it becomes truly sustainable. So there is every reason to be optimistic that over the next 10 years, this industry will find its sort of true sustainable home, and the number of jobs and therefore the demand for genetic counselors will grow, right? But we all have to work towards that, and we'll have to have that patience that it will get there. And the second thing I want to echo, of course, is what Prasanna said. Entrepreneurship is an important element because we are in the stage of the industry where everybody's trying to find business models and make them sustainable over a period of time. It is open, the field is open for people to come up with new business models. The only business model is not necessarily a hospital, the only business model is not necessarily a diagnostic lab. Right? There could be many others. I mean, the one thing that I often think about, if you look at, Prasanna alluded to wellness, you know, how many people in the population are BRCA positive? Anybody knows, wants to take a guess? What percentage of people in the population are BRCA positive? No. That'll be too, you know, thankfully, it's not that high. It's about, BRCA is about 1%, little less than that, but if you add all the other genes, etc., let's say 2%, right? 2% of people, and look at 2% of 1 billion people in India, it's a large number. So there are a large number of people out there who don't know that they are at a high risk for cancer. Is that an opportunity for entrepreneurship? Is that an opportunity for people to form groups to reach out and educate people, counsel them, just as you have various paramedical functions, physiotherapists, etc., etc. I mean, this is an opportunity to, go counsel people, tell them, make them aware, bring them into the fold of saying, I should start thinking about genomics. I think there are lots of opportunities like this if you start thinking about it, and there's plenty that can be done, but we have to go through, as I said, we have to go through a phase where we have to take risks. We have to go through a phase where we'll have to last with the ups and downs of the industry, and then we'll get there maybe 5 to 10 years from now. We'll perhaps see a mature industry in place.
Thank you. My name is Arijit. I am Indian, as you can probably tell, but I'm currently in Manchester, UK. So my question is, my actual comment against what Madam said, and you also said, you gave an example of an MC, and ideally really think that is the way, one of the ways that we can integrate into policy where all this will be enabled. Madam said where every hospital will say. So for genetic counseling, for that to happen, what is the relevant ministry of the body? Who will do that? Is it NMC or?
Yeah, it will be.
It will be NMC. And the health and family welfare. That was what I really think that is the way to go. Yes. Thank you.
So actually, I was very keen on listening to both the genetics, the industry people, and also looking at the genetic counselors. So actually, I'm coming from a clinical perspective. I am a neonatologist and I take care of critically ill babies. Now, when I look at this, I feel that as you said that most of the diseases are coming from the community. So if I diagnose 3 cases in a year, how will I hire a genetic counselor? So it is most of the genetics are coming to the industry. So you have hardly 10-15 companies who are doing the screening for genetic disorders. So I think every company should have a genetic counselor. Apart from testing positive, they should ensure that it is being counseled also. It should be the responsibility of people, because if we are saying that if it is positive, we will go ahead and do more screening and more metabolic screening. If a metabolic comes, they are saying we'll do genetic analysis. So why not have a genetic counselor part of that? The second area where I feel genetic counseling will be needed in fetal medicine. Every fetal medicine sees almost about 10-15 patients every day. And out of the 15, they will find 15-20% of the fetuses will need counseling. And they don't have time to do that. And I think that is where you can easily tie up with fetal medicine is the place where you can tie up. Now coming to genetics in per se, I think there's lot of need for genetics, at least in pediatrics. The last 4 months itself, we had ordered 70 genetic tests where we had problems in diagnosis. And out of this 70, 15 have come positive for one or the other diseases. So we are finding that where we didn't have diagnosis problems, where we had problems, we are finding solutions, at least many times in treatment and also in counseling. Now, other thing which is happening is the other area where I think pediatrics is another area where people can look at, because in pediatrics is closely linked with genetics, whether it's fetus, newborn, and the pediatrics, and mostly critical care. The third thing is, I think a lot of genetic related things are happening in microbiota. So we are moving from blood cultures to diagnosing resistant genes. So antimicrobial resistant genes identifications like ESBL, resistant MRSAs. So we are going to this and we get the reports in 3 hours. And we are trying to see how we can treat these patients better by giving appropriate antibiotics like precision medicine. So we can find out the bug, we can find out the resistant gene, and then we can tailor the antibiotic appropriate for this. So is there a way to link what we are doing for diagnostic genetics or screening genetics with microbial genetics, because then the industry is going to boom. Already in a critical care, every patient who gets admitted to the critical care will get a blood culture. And I'm sure in no time, the blood cultures will be replaced by looking for genes of microbes. Thank you.
I am Dr. Lakshmi, and I run the foundation called NDCRC in Coimbatore, and basically from IIT Madras. So we started in 2005 as such, when nothing much was known. It was in a hospital setup. We started for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. But after the grant was over, the hospital was not interested because genetics were not much known. Of course, the expert committee decided to give the small little setup. And so I thought, okay, it should work in a university setup. So I took it to Avinash Lingam, where I was an alumni, and that it was an alumni initiative over there. And then we got the NHM funding, where we said we are going to screen all the 5 districts for Duchenne. It was a door-to-door survey. Even after putting in that, I feel our country, there is no structure as such. Must be evolved, as you rightly said, in the next 10 years. But the structuring of where genetics and genetic counseling is to be in university, in business and things, it's not. So then I decided, okay, because there's so much of need, and I had by then more than 1,200 patients with Duchenne, and all in the rural. We have been doing a house-to-house survey and all that. So I said, okay, let me start an NGO. So that I could think of a trust. So I started this foundation. And then, what to say, in terms of funding, it was a challenge, but still we went with the government and under State Planning Commission, under the Innovation Grant, got a good enough grant to cover the entire state of Tamil Nadu for Duchenne, and I have now close to 4,800 Duchenne in the rural, whom we have completely screened, carrier testing done, prevention done. So science to society, or science reaching the community. So it was something which people say, yes, it was lots of passion, there was lots of challenges, but paid people well, but as you say, not like an IT or something, reasonably well, and a good team, all at the rural. And it was a face-to-face counseling till Corona, and then we started telegenetics. So there are ways, it is challenging, but I think the need is really, really growing up. And one thing is, even the government, even now in Tamil Nadu or in the rare disorder policy, national policy for rare disorders, they talk about, unless you know the numbers, but what are the efforts we are taking to understand numbers? Here, there, why don't we put at every stage, there is one place where all the hemophilias or all blood-related disorders are to be said, all neuromuscular. See, we need to have one point where it is sort of reported, put together things, so that thought to put everything together, it might be business and things,
trying to understand each one's need and what they get back. That's sort of a collaborative. And I think, again, genetic counselors, see, there is huge need and the technology is growing, the need is growing. Only the thing is, how are we going to think a little differently out of the box? Are you just going to say, they tell me what to do, I do. I'm that type. Or I am going to understand the need and take steps to do it. So that's what the difference is going to make, because the next 10 years is going to be sort of evolving, but then we need to keep ourselves in grip. And then as seniors, I feel we need to work more towards structuring the whole thing, which will help the younger ones. Thank you.
The curriculum, and one of the few things we are doing with other entrepreneurship degrees is actually introducing economics and finance as part of the degree. So the problem is everyone's clinically very strong, very good, but if a genetic counselor were to become an entrepreneur, you will need to know how much that rent is going to cost and how much it will cost for you to do the test by yourself or to hire a vendor. I think I'm seeing a lot of other programs where they're bringing finance and economics as part of it. Maybe just a little bit of a taste, but I think multidisciplinary approaches will start helping a lot of you in understanding, because when you have to present yourself to a market who, like they said, what's the ROI? How many of you even understand how to measure ROI? No, ma'am, but it's needed. Ma'am, they are very entrepreneurial. They are so smart. They're going to get there anyway. I think if there can be a little bit of a boost. Yes, ma'am. No, I completely get it, ma'am. I'm going to keep going.
Thank you, ma'am. So I am Upasana Mukherjee. I have been working as a genetic counselor for the last 10 years in India. And ma'am and everyone, Lakshmi ma'am, have always inspired us to work more and more. So I have been in the industry for 8 years, and the last 2 years I'm practicing my own, just thinking that the time when I started, I had this vision in my mind that the genetic counseling and the world of genetics has to go out to the rural, every corner of this country, which is needed right now. So one thing to the industry people, I think, as an experience in this matter, I would say, stop providing genetic counseling as a free service. It is not a free service anymore. Because the team might say that we are the facilitator for whole genome sequencing or whole exome sequencing, but no, we are the facilitator for the genetics, not for the testing here. So till the time we understand that we genetic counselors are not only to sell the tests, not only to convey the testing results, it is important for us to understand what Lakshmi ma'am has done entirely to go out the need of genetics, awareness to do the work every corner of this country. You will never have the scarcity of money here. You will solve more and more. And I request everyone, the basic thing, have you ever seen a doctor after passing MBBS, they are going to the pharma company to sell the test? They don't go. Engineer going to like a civil engineer going to some H&T or some company, just selling the cement or something. No, they don't go. They work. So become that particular person who has that strong base in genetics under the guidance of multiple seniors who have always taught us, and make yourself that much important in this industry that industry should come to you, not you are going to the industry anymore. That's what is needed right now. As a senior, I feel that. Thank you so much.
So my name is Dhanashri. I've been a genetic counselor for almost 6 years now, seventh ongoing, and I've been trained with some really pioneer figures, and I see my juniors, seniors, all dignitaries, pioneers here. And all of us have been speaking so much about need of genetic counseling and how we should position ourselves rightly and all of that. And I'm a pro genetic counselor. My heart is at my right place, and I'm very, very proud to be a genetic counselor. I come from that era to all the juniors where when I started doing my master's from VIT, it was like, I'm doing my master's in biomedical genetics. Oh, that one, it's good. So people didn't even bother listening to it completely,
So now we are a big crowd. We are trying to make our mark very significantly and very efficiently is what I would say. But what I want to focus today in just maybe 4 or 5 sentences that I want to talk about is what sort of audience or what sort of crowd are we catering to? Okay, we are talking about that set of family who can come to you, walk up to you and say that, see, I have a problem. My beta, very grassroots, very common problem. I have a HB electrophoresis positive and we are planning a pregnancy. What do I do next? But they're aware. But there is a big chunk which is still unaware about things, who do not know to take steps voluntarily by themselves. But and so we unknowingly, not very knowingly, but we just consider, oh, they will not know it, so let's not probably go to them. But trust me, I've worked with such a crowd that they are the most obedient, most complacent, and people who will value your word till the nth level. Okay, so I'll just share a very small example with you. During COVID, we were doing our teleconsultations, and we just in the peak COVID, when it was a thing, we almost counseled 1,200 patients online. And I'm talking pan-India. Okay, so there was this one family from North Karnataka. Anybody from North Karnataka who can, okay, there you are. So this North Karnataka family was based out of some rural place from Ballari. They were sitting in their farm. The pregnant lady was almost sitting near the well. She was 23 weeks pregnant, had lost 3 kids. It was unspecific polyhydramnios, and no genetic testing was done. Somebody somewhere, some ASHA worker had told them that there is something called a genetics. You can probably see if your child is going to be fine this time. And that's how somebody let good things, lead to one after the other. And they came to us, we did the counseling. They actually came up to Bangalore, got their testing done, got their scans done. And I think when she was 26 weeks, she got her prenatal reports with her. And unfortunately, it was affected with Barter type 2. It was a pathogenic variant that was found. So we were with very heavy hearts at that point, that how do we reveal this? Because after so much of struggle, we have got them and we are giving them an affected result. So at that point, we still gathered strength. We called them over and then we said that, unfortunately, we're going to give you bad news and the fetus is affected. Trust me, the parents were happy. You know why? Because this time they knew the answer. They knew what they're dealing with. And today, this is 3 years now, the parents are still in contact with us. I see the progress of the child, and it's a girl baby. And she's doing fantastic because she actually got the care that was required at the neonatal period. Her electrolytes were balanced. She got good care. And today, she's doing okay. She's having much better quality of life than anybody who otherwise would be affected with Barter's without knowing it. So what I'm trying to tell here is, do not assume the fact that your crowd or your person sitting in front of you might not really understand. You put in your efforts, stick to your basics, and definitely there's going to be a lot of empowerment that you will bring into. As counselors, I think that's what we do. We empower them with information. So cheers to genetic counseling. That's all what I would say. Thank you.
So I moved. It's not really a question or a comment. I moved back to India in 2011. I was in Hyderabad. I am in Hyderabad, and for the first time realized the impact of consanguineous marriages, both in Hindu community and in Muslim communities. And I think there is a tremendous role for genetic counselors to counsel and change certain practices. It is not to do with, other kinds of impact and increasing their salary and employability, but I think there is a tremendous social role because people marry first cousins, they marry for property reasons, they marry for other reasons, and you can see so many people I know will say, yeah, we've had this eye problem running in the family, but they will not stop to think why. And the level of ignorance about maternal, uncle and cousins not contributing genetically to the child is just amazing. So I think there is a lot to be done at the government level, at social level, and it's almost the responsibility of people like us to make sure that we are transmitting this information that it is not good to marry within the family.
Yes, absolutely correct. So what we have been seeing for the last several years of research in terms of understanding population history, now we narrow down at least 1/3 of the population in India because of the endogamy, not only consanguinity, even the endogamy has very, very high impact. Endogamy in the sense marrying within the community. There are many more communities. 1/3 of the Indian population, not only Indian population, 1/3 of the South Asians, right, as a whole. So maybe I'll be presenting tomorrow. I can still tell you very briefly that we have identified some population where technically we say that IBD score, that means the population, if you take few individuals who are supposed to be unrelated, if they share a common haplotype, then you can say that they have come from a common ancestor. So that increases the chance of more recessive diseases, right? So I'll tell you tomorrow example. So that kind of situation is existing. So it's our duty as a scientist and as a professionalist, as a genetic counselor, to communicate this to the community. And again, I can tell you that how we reached to the community rural area to convey this. So let's talk about that tomorrow. Yes. So I don't want to reveal everything today.
So first of all, thank you very much, BGCI, for giving us this opportunity to come here. That is first thing, and it's very nice to see the experts from my previous experiences, previous experts with whom I have worked and the present experts with whom I'm working right now. What I have a question here. Look, I will tell you my 10 years of experience. I started working for business development of genetic testing almost 11 years ago. And after 5 years, I realized that I'm anyway doing genetic counseling unofficially. So I decided to have a license, and then I got associated with BGCI. And now I'm a level 2 certified counselor, as well as, of course, other things I'm doing in my industry. What I realized in these 5 years, when I was doing officially genetic counseling, collecting family history, talking to people, it's like, yes, of course, this is communication skills, soft skills, everything is fine. But the point is here, the charity begins at home. How many of us have done whole genome sequencing or whole exome sequencing? How much we know about our own exome or own genome? And when I know about myself, then I am convinced, then I can convince others to understand the importance and utility of genetic testing and genomic testing. And why I am saying this thing, because I have got it done for myself. And I am a cystic fibrosis carrier. It's not just that I'm a carrier, I have given it to my son also. So he is also a cystic fibrosis carrier. Now, he asked me this question, 30 years old. In fact, I had got it done 2 years ago, I think, 20 years old. That time he asked me, what about me? You are grown up, you are married, you have your own kids, your family is complete. What about me? Then I explained it to him that if you are going to get married, get the other person also counsel, the girl also tested. If she is negative, nothing to worry. Maximum you will give birth a child who is cystic fibrosis carrier. But if she is positive, don't get married. So if it is a love marriage, you won't. You will certainly get married. No, don't get married to that girl. Yeah. I wanted to hear that. I wanted to hear that. Fair enough. I agree. Please get right to that, girl. But when you're going to have the next generation, then be careful about it and take all possible precautions or go ahead with the IVF, do all possible things which makes your, ठीक है prenatal करेंगे, it's okay, we'll do prenatal. And so I wanted to tell him all the options which are available and then go ahead with to give the birth to the next generation. That is perfectly fine. Now my question to this forum is, how many of the genetic counselors, BGCI certified genetic counselors, how many of them know about their genome or exome? We all know, many of us do. Good, that's it. Please raise the hand. Sure, ma'am. We'll discuss that. Okay. Yeah.
I thank all the dignitaries as well as all the very active participants and the audience over here. Now I request all of you to please carry on the entire discussion over the tea break. And now I request Dr. Villu to please come onto the dais and present the mementos to our dignitaries.
I should go there?
Yeah. We request Dr. Villu to felicitate our first speaker, Dr. Ramesh Hariharan. Yeah. So then. Yeah. Ma'am, please read. Yeah. Next, we would like you to felicitate Ms. Sonali Srungaram from Sion Cancer Institute. Yeah. Next, we request to felicitate Dr. Subha Warrior.
You guys got it.
Now request you to felicitate Dr. Rakesh Mishra from TIGS. We now request you to felicitate Mr. Prasadra. No one. Dr. Subha Rao. Next, we request you to felicitate Dr. Pragna Rao.
I request Dr. Annie Hassan to, ma'am, for the moderators, for the host, ma'am, Dr. Gayatri and Dr. Zubeda.
You welcome.
To conclude this inaugural session, I now invite Dr. Zubeda for the closing remarks.
I will not be taking more than 2 minutes. So, as we bring an inspiring day one of our conference, yes, but then not all the audience. I will just take 2 more minutes and give the closing remarks. Yeah. Yeah. So as we bring an inspiring day one of our conference to a close, I extend my sincere gratitude to each one of you who has made today such a resounding success. To our esteemed stakeholders, your vision and support have been pivotal in shaping the direction of this conference. Your commitment to advancing our field is the cornerstone of our collective progress. And I thank you. I thank all the distinguished speakers of both the workshops. Your expertise and thought-provoking presentations have illuminated new pathways for innovation and collaboration in genetic counseling. I thank all our sponsors. Your generosity and belief in our mission, it has made this event possible, and all the sponsors and all the sponsorship committee as well. I also want to acknowledge the delegates and the participants whose engagement and enthusiasm have energized today's sessions. And last but not least, a special mention to the media representatives covering our conference. Your efforts in spreading awareness and highlighting the importance of genetic counseling are invaluable in reaching a wider audience and fostering understanding. And with that, I welcome you all again tomorrow for a very interactive day 2 of the conference. Now we'll just move for the tea break. Thank you.